Good afternoon to everybody. And I'm Sakshi Desai, and I work with Johnson & Johnson as a global lead compliance strategy and analytics. And I'm very, very excited to be here today to be talking to you. And I thank JobsForHer for giving me this opportunity to connect with you. Today I'll be talking about skills and knowledge required to be a leader, and I will try to answer as many questions as I can to the best of my abilities. And I think without further delay, let's look at what questions we are getting in and start answering them. Okay, while we wait for the questions to come in. So I think, so I have spent about 13 years in the industry working at various global roles for different organizations. Like, I've mostly been in the pharma industry, so been in GSK, been in Johnson & Johnson now for about 2 years. And I think the one thing that I've learned throughout my 13 years is that for being a good leader, I think you first have to be a good person. You really have to trust your people and have that empathy and listening skills. And I think these are basic human traits, and these are also what make you a great leader. So I think to me that's really, really important to be able to function as a good leader and inspire the people that we have. Okay, I see some questions here now. Okay, so the first question that I have here is Vandana. So she's asking, does one need to be active on social media like LinkedIn to be considered for leadership roles? Vandana, that's a good question. And I think if you look at it from a traditional leadership perspective, it may not have been very important. But in the current scenario and in the digital age that we live in, it's important that you are visible. I wouldn't say that it's mandatory, and I wouldn't say that people who are not on LinkedIn and not on social media will not be considered for a leadership role. That's not true. But at the same time, if you are visible and if you are creating your network, it's very important. To be classified as a leader, to somebody who's visible to people, who's going out there and networking and talking to people. And when you talk to people, they get to know your brand value. And it's in today's world, I think it's all about self-branding and how you're able to sell yourself. And just doing the work and just knowing your skills is sometimes not enough. But really showcasing that, and the best way to do it these days is through social media. So yes, it's I think become a critical component. But again, I wouldn't say that if you're not there, then you cannot be considered for a leadership role. That's not true. But if you want to enhance your chances, then yes, be there, be out there, be active, and network. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. All right. The next one is Vinny Zanda asks, hi, I'm an engineer and a postgraduate in IT. I left job in November 2017, but now I want to restart, but I don't feel the same level of confidence in me, and I'm nervous at the same time. Well, Vinny, first of all, know that you're not alone. And I think most of the people who go on career breaks and take sabbaticals do have the same kind of feelings as you are going through right now. But don't worry, there are several ways to get over this feeling. And first of all, I think from a personal advice perspective, I would say that first of all, cut the negative talk. Don't talk negatively to yourself. Believe in your self-worth. And from a process perspective, if I have to tell you, then I think the first step for you is to really understand what kind of role do you want to get back into and how do you want to restart. And that will depend on the level of support and the situation that you are into right now from a personal perspective. Do you want to go into a full-time, part-time, work from home? What kind of options are you looking at? Which industry do you want to go back to? Are you able to go back into the IT industry? Because that's a very demanding role. So depending on your situation, first understand what that would be. And once you know what kind of role you want to get back into, then upskill yourself from both perspectives. From an industry perspective, know what the industry, it changes, it's so dynamic as you know it. And So see what kind of changes have occurred in these 3 years, what are the latest trends and technologies, what's happening, talk to your colleagues and your maybe your friends, and understand and read up and research articles and kind of understand what the industry is looking like now after 3 years. And then what is it that's required for you to kind of upgrade yourself, and then go ahead and take certifications or any upskilling programs that you think would help you to kind of update yourself, keep yourself updated to the current trends. And once you start doing these things, take baby steps, I think that will start improving your confidence as well. And like we were just saying in the previous question, that it's also important to network. So go out there on LinkedIn and other media and maybe your friends and colleagues, and tell them that you're interested in getting back, and that these are the things that you've done, these are the certifications you've taken in order to come back, and start growing your network. And finally, keep your resume updated. Make sure you're adding all your new skills in there, and you're removing the unnecessary, irrelevant details or things which are very old and you may not be very good at. So highlight your strengths there. So I think slowly, as you take baby steps, you will start gaining the confidence back. And I think JobsForHer is a great platform to start there when it comes to upskilling or maybe mentoring or any of the support that you require. You probably can get from here as well, right? So I hope that answers your question, Vinny. Hamida says, my basic skill set is leadership in management. So what important things do I need to know more in leadership apart from the basic skills? And she also adds, what are the important things for a leader to have? So I think, Hamida, like I was saying, earlier, to be a good leader, you have to be a good people's person first. And I think in today's world, it has really turned around from what it used to be previously in traditional leadership scenario, where you needed XYZ skills. But I think in today's world, it's more of being a visionary. So I think you need to really have that vision for your team. And this vision has to be a shared vision. So you should be able to not only create a vision and for you, and know where you want your organization or your team to go into, which direction, but also take their entire team and make sure that they are aligned with that vision, that they understand that vision, and you're able to take them all along together towards that vision. So being a visionary is important. The other piece, which is also very important, is which I'm sure is communication, right? So you have to communicate with your teams at all times. Make sure they know everything that's going on. And in communication, I would also add listening. So it's not just about talking, but it's also about listening to what your team has to say. And then you listen, not just hear, right? You have to really listen to what they're saying. And then when you're listening, you're also able to empathize and trust. So all these three things are interlinked to each other: listening, empathizing, and trusting. And trust is, again, one of the key skills that a leader must possess. And those are like soft skills, but I think for a leader, that's a must-have. And apart from that, you have to be technically proficient. So you need to know your stuff. Unless you know your stuff, your team is not going to respect you. We have seen, I'm sure you have seen too, in many times you have leaders who are not great in terms of their technical skills and knowledge, and therefore they are not able to lead by example. So I think for a leader to be truly be inspirational, you need to really know your stuff, be technically proficient, and lead by example, so that people are able to look at you and be inspired by you and then follow your footsteps. And I think the other very important aspect of being a good leader is being resourceful. And when I say resourceful, I mean that you have to be well connected to different parts of your organizations, and you have to be able to provide the right kind of tools and resources and other support that's needed for your team to be able to perform. So being resourceful is also extremely important for a good leader. And I think lastly, being transparent and letting your team know whatever is happening at a higher level. Most of the times it's top down, right? So if everything happens and all decisions are being taken at the top level, and they don't get cascaded down to your teams, and they're working hard, they are the ones who are doing the groundwork, but they're not getting anything back. So I think it's very important to have that transparency and let your teams know. So I think, yeah, these are some of the things that are very important to be a leader. So Vaishnavi asks, looking to restart my career. Also, I have skilled myself in automation. Whenever I attend any interview, they just ask for project experience for the skills I have learned. How do I go about this? Well, Vaishnavi, I think that's a tough one, and I agree with you that whenever you would attend interviews, people tend to ask you more about the experience, the hands-on experience that you have. Why don't you try with some internships? And I think it's important for you to be flexible in that manner. That I've worked for an X number of years. How can I go back into internships or that kind of setup? But it's for your. I think it will help you if you. And there are many companies that are willing to provide that kind of re-entry programs in helping you get internships into these newer skills that you've acquired. Like automation is something which is new and which all the companies and all the organizations are going big way into it, and they all have projects that may require someone who can help them with at a smaller level, and maybe you can start there, and then once you have that hands-on experience, and then you can go back into interviews with that example or experience. I think while we wait for newer questions to come in, I can probably cover some aspects of traditional leadership versus today's collaborative leadership. And I think when we look at what older and traditional style of leadership was, it was more about being the boss and being the manager, and more about while a manager or an old traditional leadership, when they would kind of give you, it was a more feedback driven approach where they would meet with you annually or whatever the company norms are, and they will give you a feedback, and it's going to be more about just that one conversation or two conversations where you given a sudden feedback which probably didn't even know existed for so many months. Whereas in collaborative leadership or the newer ways of leadership, you're going to have a leader who's going to be communicating with you consistently and constantly, and will be more of a coaching and mentoring way of feedback rather than that once or twice in a year. Similarly, in traditional leadership, they would believe in creating rules that everybody in the team had to follow. Whereas in today's world and in the collaborative leadership space, it's more about being flexible, as much flexibility as you can provide to your team and your employees. They understand that that's more valuable than having a set of rules which people get suffocated with. The other thing was, that they would see strong performance as a threat to their own position, whereas in today's leadership, it's more about empowering these strong performance, valuing talent, and really making sure that you're developing those talents, right? And while the old managers and old leadership style would use the people to their own advantage, I think today's people believe, and today's leaders, they believe more in kind of developing people rather than using them to their own advantage. And I think finally, I think also, let me keep refreshing this for more questions. Finally, by the old traditional style of leadership, people were demanding, whereas in today's collaborative leadership space, they are inspiring. They're inspirational leaders. They are visionaries, right? So yeah, so I think that's a difference between how older ways of working and the newer ways of working in today's day and age. So okay, there are some questions that I'm not able to see on this, but I have here. So Suchi asks, is reskilling important to become a leader? I'm thinking of some management courses. Well, Suchi, I think it is not just to be a leader, but in anywhere that you want to grow. For any kind of growth, reskilling and constantly updating yourself is very important. So and I think it's a great thing if you're thinking of attending a management course. So whichever area interests you, I think go ahead and start reskilling yourself and taking any kind of courses that you think will help you to grow in that field which you are interested in. And that also gives you the confidence, right? So when you're upskilling yourself, you're learning something new, you're able to add more value, and you're creating that value proposition of yourself, and you're again, like I talked about self branding. So you're adding more value to yourself, which you can then bring back to the table. So yes, go ahead, but it's important to be relevant, right? So you have to first identify what kind of roles are you looking at, what kind of positions are you looking at, which path do you want to go, and then decide on what kind of courses, or whether it's what kind of a course. Is it a soft skill, is it a management course, is it a technical course, and then decide on that and go ahead and do it. Okay, Pallavi asks, how important is it to have a mentor to get into leadership path? Should the mentor be in the same organization I am in? So that's a great question, Pallavi. I think mentors are important, and I think not only for leadership roles, for anything in your life, even as on a personal level, mentors are always helpful because they are there to coach you, constantly guide you. They are experienced people, right? They have lived through it, and so they are able to provide their knowledge sharing to you. And no, they don't have to be from the same organization. They can be outside of the organization. And like I said, JobsForHer, and there are many other companies and who are providing that kind of support to you, where they provide you mentors relevant to your area and specifically what you're looking at, and then they will be able to help you with mentors, and you can select your mentors. And there are coaches also, right, as you might know. So there's mentoring and there is coaching. So then these will be career coaches and life coaches who can help you to really wade through whatever problems you're facing, or just in general guidance. And they will be able to help you with, like we're talking today, they'll be able to help you, with the skills and knowledge that you need. They will identify through talking to you what you really want to do, and then guide you through to how to get there. So I think, yes, it's important to have mentors. It's always added benefit to have a mentor. It's not that without a mentor you can't do, but it always helps to have an added perspective and somebody who's experienced and who's been there to help you and guide you to get there, or wherever you want to get there. So yeah, you can also, like I said, JobsForHer has a mentoring program. You can reach out to them and then look at the options you have in terms of mentoring. How can so Divya asks, how can women increase their visibility and influence to advance in their career? I think that's a brilliant question, Divya. And the first thing that women, I think, have to understand is that they are no less. So because most of the times what happens is that we as women, we underrate ourselves. And that's why we are afraid to maybe not afraid, but we are hesitant to speak out. We think that if we are going to talk about ourselves and talk about the skills that we bring or the value that we bring, we are going to be classified as boasting, or we are going to, people are going to say we are bragging about ourselves. But that's not true. I think that's something that we should not think about. So the first thing that you have to do to be visible is first to value yourself and know what you bring to the table. You need to know your worth and appreciate it. The second is to make yourself heard, and don't hesitate to speak out. Don't apologize. Many a times, like for example, when we are in meetings and sitting in a group setting where you have several male colleagues sitting with you and you want to make a point, what we end up doing is we end up saying, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but can I make a point? And things like that. So I think we as women have to stop apologizing. We have a point and we are going to make it, right? So let your voice be heard in these meetings and in any setup where there are opportunities to speak up and speak with confidence. Practice being assertive, right? So and again, don't think that being assertive will be called being rude. No, being assertive is important in a professional world, and if you are going to make a point, make sure you're being assertive, you're being confident, and know your stuff. So I think that's one of the very important things that just speaking out doesn't help. So you need to know what you're talking about. So whatever issue is being discussed, whatever project you're working on, make sure that you're technically sound and you understand your stuff, and then go out there and speak. And every opportunity that you can to go and speak, don't lose it. I think you should go out there and speak. Create your self brand. Yeah, And that's I think that's very important to advance in your career, because if just doing is not enough, but also showing what you've done is important, and that's not rude and that's not boasting. That's the demand of today's world. Charu asks, is there a possibility to restart a career in a leadership role? So Charu, I think that depends upon where did you leave off your career. I think it's not impossible. It is possible, but again, like I've been talking and we've been talking throughout this session, that it's important that you upskill yourself um, and make sure that you are relevant. And for whatever roles you're applying, for whatever kind of leadership roles you're applying, you know the technical stuff, the technical side of it as well. And you were able to portray yourself as a leader, and if required, you have upskilled yourself and you have attended different training programs where by way of which you can convince the employer that you are ready to take on a leadership role. And if during your break, and I'm assuming you were on a break because you've said restart a career, if during a break there are any courses or anything that has happened that has helped you develop those leadership skills, because I think, for example, not that I'm assuming, but for example, when somebody is on a maternity break, I think being a mother also teaches you a lot of leadership qualities, right? So if there are any things that you've learned during that break, which have helped you develop your leadership qualities, portray them, highlight them, but at the same time, be flexible. I would say that if you were a leader before in those roles, then it's easier for you to come back as a leader again, and it's easier to convince because you've done that. But if not, then it's a little difficult, but don't lose hope. Keep upskilling yourself, keep attending those programs, and hire a mentor. And there are many re-entry programs available in today's day and age, so try and make use of those. And yeah, don't lose hope. There's always a possibility for everything. Okay, I think I have just 2 minutes left. I'll see if there is some final questions. So I think this is a very nice, interesting question, and something that I always kind of see. It says that, do you have any tips and tricks to share with women who have to lead teams of mostly male colleagues? When I think, to me, first of all, we should not really categorize them as male and female. Leadership qualities and leadership skills are the same, whether you're leading a male colleague or a female colleague. For me, it's gender does not get into the way of leading people. What is really important is to know your people and know your teams, what each one likes and dislikes, what each one brings to the what kind of skills and knowledge he has, where does he fit in. And when you're able to connect with each of them at an individual level, and when you're able to connect with each at an individual level, then you're able to create that bonding and that trust with each person. And it's basic human nature, right? That does not change with a male or a female, as long as you are able to portray that you know your stuff, you are technically sound, you're able to connect to different people, you are listening to them, and you are helping and supporting their growth, you're empowering them to grow as a leader, you're developing them, you're able to provide them with the right resources. I think it's not then going to make a difference whether you are dealing with males or female colleagues. That's my personal view. Yeah. All right, and I think we are at the end of our time. If there are questions that have not been able to answer, please feel free to connect to me through JobsForHer. I have a mentor's profile. You can do that, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and we can see how we answer that for you. And I think it was really good to have this chat and conversation with you and all of you, and they were great questions asked. And I hope that I've been able to answer it to your satisfactions. All right. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to talk to you all and connect with everybody. Thank you.